Our one-night stand in the Garden of Eden. I am James O'Leary. I'm your host for tonight. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. On the seventh day he rested, and on the eighth day he started all over again. Well, the story of Adam and Eve begins in Genesis chapter 2, where God waters the dry earth and forms man from the dust of the ground. He creates woman from Adam's rib and tells them that you are free to eat from any tree in the Garden of Eden, but do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. So Adam and Eve live happily in the garden, naming the animals, eating the fruit of every tree except one, and then one day Eve meets a serpent who speaks to her and says, well, you'll see. Let us begin our journey into Eden, a place of beauty and danger, a world without shame or clothing or the sounds of cell phones or other electronic devices. And please, we must request from you, really, no nudity from the audience. We begin with a love story, Serpent in Love, by Gina, Wencel.
The woman comes to visit the tree at every sunrise. Sometimes she sits under it and talks with the animals. Other times, she climbs the limbs and plays with the birds in their nests. She always lets the insects crawl over her hands. I live in the tree, but she has never seen me. I often wonder if she would so easily let me snake over her fingers. Today, the woman climbs higher than she ever has before. She grasps something she thinks is a branch. And I move. She realizes that the branch is alive. So to surprise her, I coil around her body and squeeze her slender waist. Then I stare into her eyes. She is startled. Her gaze lingers over my skin. I position myself so that the sun bursts upon my iridescent diamonds. I flick my forked tongue between my lips and know that my golden eyes have hypnotized her. I think her eyes are like a deer's eyes, simple and empty. And all at once I remember the eggs I had swallowed that morning. I hiss a song to her in a language we both can understand, for it is the true language of all living things. The woman listens to me. She strokes my skin and murmurs until she finally sings. And her voice uses the cadence of the wind. Now it is my turn to be beguiled. I shut my luminous eyes and fall asleep within her song. I do not dream, but float about the branches, truly at peace. When I finally open my eyes, I realize that I want to keep her here with me forever. And isn't it true that she wants to be with me too? She does not run away from me, as so many others have done. She strokes me and sings. No, I think she believes I'm beautiful. I gaze into her dark eyes again, and I realize I was mistaken. Her eyes, so like a doe's eyes, are kind and gentle, not empty. They hold the whole world. There's a fruit high up in the tree. It has never fallen, yet it has kept its ripe color. I find it beautiful like the woman, special like her. I feel the compulsion to offer it to her. Somehow I know it is my destiny to do so. So I slither my long body, curling up to the thick, knotted trunk of the tree that seems to be lifting me higher. The fruit is waiting. So I open my mouth wide and try not to puncture it with my sharp, poisonous fangs. And with the red fruit balanced in my dangerous mouth, I slowly approach her. She smiles, and her teeth gleam. Saliva seems to drip from the corners, much like the poison had dripped from my mouth when I had cornered a mouse some days ago. I offer the fruit to her like a kiss, not knowing that I had bit into it ever so slightly, and that my poison had seeped into the folds of its firm flesh. The woman takes a bite, at first smiling, and her eyes seem to lose their openness. All at once she has fallen asleep with her eyes wide open. A drop of poison drips from my mouth, and I curse myself as I watch her dip down and fall from the limb she was perched on. I slither fast to be by her side, but it is the man who gets to her first. He picks her up and takes her away with him. The poisoned fruit still grasped in her hand. I move up into the highest branches of the tree. I wonder where she is. If she's sick. If she no longer breathes. I stay much too long in the swaying branches. My jeweled skin begins to blister from the scorch of the sun. For many days I linger in the branches above, so melancholy, I feel my heart will burst. I will no longer take in breath. And then, one miraculous day, I see her lithe form, and she looks well. She is beautiful. She approaches my tree, and I realize that her eyes are different, more complex. They seem to shine like my own, with something within them, not so kind. I know this, for I have stared at myself in a pool of water and marveled at my beauty, while all the other creatures turned away from me in fear. She seems to recognize me. I slither closer, trying to mesmerize her with my stare, hoping she has forgiven me. Horribly, she recoils like all the others and runs from me. She doesn't approach the tree again. I still watch her. I keep hidden in the thick branches. I watch as she takes water from the river below. I watch as she catches a fish with her fingers and beats its pearly head against a rock. I turn my gaze away, even though I understand the need, the desire to kill. One day, she and the man approach the tree. They look at it as a thing to be broken and used. The man takes a sharp tool and approaches the trunk, ready to cut where I live. But the tree is magical, and no matter how many times he swings the blade, it will not be wounded. Finally, exhausted, the man stops. He throws the blade down into the grass, crushing a delicate flower the color of my eyes. He strides away, but the woman lingers. She lifts the blade from the grass and tries to straighten the crushed stem, but the petals just fall from her hands. I slithered closer and hissed softly. I dangle from the tree, pliant and suicidal. She slowly stands up and stares at me. Again, there is a flicker of recognition, and for a moment, her hand reaches tentatively toward my bejeweled face.
Why?
She whispers. I do not understand the word, for she has lost the ability to speak in the language of all living things. She slowly backs away, And as I watch her, the sun sets, morphing her face into shadow, until all that is left is something that once existed, but is now no more. As she disappears, the animals sigh, and the tree bows in the breeze. My heart is heavy. And I understand now. She's gone forever. I find that my eyes are bleeding. At least that is how they feel when a clear liquid tear falls from my face. It moistens a bud and a branch below me, and I watch, aghast, as another red fruit